Welcome to the Dental Journeys podcast, proudly sponsored by Whitecoat Financial. Join us as we explore the journeys, strategies, and successes of dental professionals across Canada. Whether you're a brand new grad or a seasoned dentist, our episodes aim to provide advice and insights for your journey in the dynamic world of dentistry. But yeah, if you could fill me in on obviously where you grew up and really what life was like, let's say heading into undergrad, because I think that's a good place to start for anyone who doesn't know you.
Yeah, so I grew up in a mid-sized city in Ontario, Canada. Um, was kind of not sure where I was kind of headed. I knew, I wanted to get into the healthcare field. We didn't really have anyone in the healthcare field in terms of, our family and whatnot, but my cousin was actually, an older cousin was a dentist, so I kind of had some influence from there. So in high school, I did, a little bit of shadowing, a little bit of co-op. I did like a physiotherapy co-op at the hospital. I knew I did not want to work at the hospital. It just was a little bit depressing for me, I guess. And that maybe that ward that I worked in wasn't the greatest overview, but so I essentially went to the University of Guelph for undergrad, did biomed there. Didn't really have a sense of where I was heading, but healthcare again, that's kind of, I knew that was where I was headed, but the first couple of years didn't go so well. Wasn't too focused because I didn't really have an end goal, but third year I was like, this has got to change. I started shadowing, saw my cousin, what he was doing. We had a couple of family friends that were dentists as well. And I was like, this is what I want to strive for. It had a great balance. Again, everyone says you have the health, you have the working with your hands portion. There's also a business aspect to it as well. So that was interesting. You kind of set your own hours. You're your own boss, essentially. You can be your own boss, which is what was really interesting about it. And it was really open-ended. You could take dentistry and you can kind of specialize in so many ways, or you can do general dentistry and just focusing on that. So that's kind of where I was headed. So that was my strive for that. And, you take the DATs and whatnot. So that went well. And then eventually when it came to applying, ended up actually going to Australia for my dental school. So that was a crazy great experience. Highly recommend to anyone. A bit more pricey heading that way, but I think it's definitely worth it. Life experience, you can't really change that. Had amazing friends. The curriculum was awesome. It was very clinically focused, which is great. So I felt really prepared coming out of dental school. Obviously, there's still a lot more to learn, but it prepared us in a really good way. The living in Australia was amazing too. We were in Melbourne, but you can, fly to other parts of Australia and kind of have mini vacations whenever you want. The weather is great. The people are awesome. And it was a pretty easy transition, even though, it's across the world. The transition, it's very similar to Canada. I just say it's a warmer Canada. That's all it is. A little bit of a more laid back, warmer Canada. We had a great amount of Canadians in our class. So that also helped with the transition because we were kind of all going through it together. So you kind of felt at home. We'd celebrate Canada Day and stuff like that. We'd watch hockey games, Raptors games together. We watched the Raptors win the NBA championship together. So that was cool. But yeah, it was awesome. And then, so eventually got into, graduated right before COVID. So I graduated in December in 2019. Got my license in February, I believe, and then started worked my first week, and then we shut down. So bit of a bummer, but it was definitely an experience. I think it actually helped me grow and kind of helped change my viewpoint of what dentistry was and what I wanted to get out of life. I think it all kind of gave us a different outlook on life, being at home, being stuck to your own house and not being able to see a lot of people. It put life into perspective. Things can change all of a sudden, and you might as well make the most of life. Work comes and goes, money comes and goes, but the freedom, the people around you, that's, you can't really can't trade that for money or anything else. So we only have a finite time on this earth. So that definitely put things into perspective. But
Mhm.
yeah, so, started worked at various jobs. Uh, Luckily, I kind of had done my fair share of shadowing and connections throughout dental school. So whenever I'd come back for Christmas break or summer break from Australia, I'd go in and shadow. So I had connections in terms of jobs coming out of dental school, which was great. They were great jobs as well, great associateships. And then yeah, so I got to experience working at a startup, working at an established office, working at
Mhm.
a you know relative startup to it's there's different kind of associateship. So I got to gain a lot in terms of the not only the clinical side, because I had some mentors, and there was some clinics where I was kind of the only dentist, so I pushed myself and I was able to kind of grow that way. And I went crazy. I think I went a little too crazy the first year or two. My wife was still studying. She was still in Australia studying, so there wasn't much else. It was kind of that, like it was technically COVID still, but so you couldn't really, you couldn't go to the gym and do things like that. So I just worked. I was like, you know what, might as well make some, learn as much as I can, make some money, because there's not really too much else to do. But quickly learned that it's, you work more, you make more money. It doesn't really change much in terms of your lifestyle, and so that was good. It's good. I'm happy that I kind of burnt myself out early, because I learned early on that it's not really worth it, at least for me. Everyone's got different viewpoints on life and what they want to achieve. So yeah, it's essentially where we're at. Currently work at two practices, associate at two practices. And this is kind of why, we connected, and why we want to do this podcast, because I think there's a lot of people that are in my shoes, whether it be new grads or students still in dental school, or even dentists that are more experienced than me, that are trying to find what's next for them, or whether what they have currently is just the way to go. So there's like, it's kind of how the name came through. I guess there's so many journeys in dentistry, and that's what we're trying to navigate. And I think it'd be cool to document our journeys as well as we kind of navigate it through.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. There's actually a couple things I wanted to expand on, because when you were in Melbourne, you started, was it Dentist to Be, which
Yeah.
was obviously helping people pass the exams. How did you even decide to start that? And then correct me if I'm wrong. Is it still operating today? Do people still go through the courses? I'd love if you could tell us more about that.
Yeah. So a great friend of mine, Ziad, we'll probably have him on the podcast, hopefully.
Mhm.
We're always looking to do something different, and trying to get ahead of the game somewhat, and trying to help as many people as we can. So yeah, in third year, we had talked about it in second year. We talked to the upper years, and they didn't know how to study for the board exams, and they were always kind of stressed out and whatnot. So we thought, why isn't there a resource? There's resources for the DAT, which is the
Mhm.
admissions test for dental school, but there's not really anything for dental students graduating, writing their board exam essentially.
Mhm.
So, especially since we were in Australia, we didn't have, I think in some universities in Canada, they help you prepare in a way, whereas in Australia, we're kind of segregated, and, we don't have all that information essentially. So, we kind of relied on the upper years and their expertise and help. So, yeah, in third year, we kind of embarked on this project to create a business, to create a platform and an educational platform for students like us, that they could go to a resource to help guide them in getting their licensure essentially. So we created a platform. It was tough. I mean, we worked at it for 2 years. It was definitely tough, but it was probably one of the most rewarding things that we've ever done. And it was great doing it with someone. And again, that's kind of why I think this is great, because I think partnerships, when they work, they're great. You help push each other and
Mhm.
whatnot. So me and Ziad pushed each other. We built a website. We did all this content. So we literally wrote out all the questions ourselves, the answers, reference those answers, built a website. But now the exam has kind of changed. So it's still running, and people still do use it. But we're actually undergoing a little bit of a shift where we're actually there's a new format to the exam now. So it's an
Mhm.
OSCE format. So we're actually transitioning that, and it's currently kind of underway. And yeah, we want to keep it going. It's definitely something that we're very proud of, and it kind of reminds us of the effort that we kind of put in, and it's been great because we've had great feedback from students. So that's kind of what keeps us going with it.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's probably nice running into, if you're at a CE course or something like that, and a young dentist comes up to you and they're like, "Hey, help me pass my boards," or whatever the case is. Like, I can imagine
Yeah.
that could be extremely rewarding. Forget obviously all the hard work that you put into it, and if there's any compensation you guys receive, really, that's probably the main benefit of doing that, of having friends in your community that you've helped, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about: helping each other and growing with each other. And if we can help our colleagues, why not? That's definitely something that we'd love to do. Essentially, yeah,
And I guess fast forwarding kind of to when you started practicing, obviously it was COVID and you couldn't work for a bit, but you worked at 3 clinics initially, right?
yeah. So one of them, it was kind of the so we had a business. My parents had a business growing up. I was a dentist next door, so we kept in good contact. And whenever I'd come back from dental school, I'd go shadow, and then they offered me a job. They said, what, next year we're looking for an associate. Let's if you'd want to come work for us, we'd love to have you. So that was one of the jobs that I started with, which is great. It's an established practice, great mentors.
Mhm.
Eventually phase it out, but it was great. We had a great relationship and everything, so that was good. One of the offices was a little bit far away, more of a corporate office, busy, lots of dentists kind of all at once. So that was great as well because the dentists actually we all helped each other. There was not really like a
Mhm.
sense of competition, which was awesome. So I got to learn from dentists that were 10 years ahead of me. So that was great. Terrible drive, and I used to do terrible hours. But I just thought, if I was gonna drive an hour and a half, I might as well make it worth it and work the whole day. And then yeah, so it was great. It was great, while it lasted as well. But I eventually moved on, and then I also worked for my cousin, which I still do right now.
Mhm.
So he's awesome. He's been like a older brother and a mentor for me. So that's you can't really ever replace that. It's tough to have something like that. So I'm very grateful for it.
Mhm.
And then eventually, through CE courses, which is something that I would highly recommend. New grad dentists and any dentist really in general, take as many CE courses as you can. I've taken my quite my fair share of them. I think it's important. Not only are you expanding your skills and seeing what's out there, you make connections. And one of the courses that I took, the the practice I work at now, he was one of the mentors there. So we had a good connection. When a associate position came up, we ended up joining him. I ended up joining him, and my wife currently works for him as well. So it definitely opens up many doors when you take CE,
Mhm.
not only in terms of expanding your clinical skills, but you get to meet people and make connections, and it gave us a great opportunity, and that's where I'm currently at. So work at my cousin's office and the other office that me and my wife work at as well right now. So and it's awesome. We've got a good gig going.
Yeah. I I was gonna ask because the clinic you just said that you went to that CE course and now you're working with that principal, and your wife does as well. How's that dynamic been? Because I know you guys obviously are married, you spend time together at home, and then you also work together. Has it been difficult, I guess, like navigating? Okay, when do we leave work at work? Do you guys talk about dentistry all the time? Are you able to leave work at work? How's that been?
Yeah, it's a good question. So luckily, oh, not luckily and unluckily, I guess. We worked together one day. So we each worked our 3 days, but we kind of coincide on one day. And so far, it's been awesome. I can't complain. We have a great relationship, and we respect each other and professionally and stuff as well. But I think we have a good thing going on because we help each other out as much as we can. Um, and it's nice kind of driving together, and you know
Mhm.
it- we try and not talk about dentistry, but it's always going to be there, unfortunately. And that's what we like, and that's our passion. So we try and cut it out as much as we can at home. We'll talk about it for 30 minutes and then try and, phase it out and talk about other stuff, but it always makes its way back.
Yeah, that's fair. Don't worry. My wife
Yeah.
complains about how much I talk about finance, and she's like, I don't care. I just really
Yeah,
don't. It's when you like what you do and you're passionate about it, you're gonna talk about it. You're gonna be excited about
exactly.
it and tell people about it. So I think that's normal, especially when you got two people in the same industry. That's almost bound to happen. And
Exactly. And
both of you, day to day today, practicing general dentistry, like is there sort of an area that you like to specialize, you like to do more work in, but or really like what does your day to day look like as of today?
yeah, so a good question. I guess early on, I, you kind of have different views and journeys of what you think you're kind of going to go through when when
Mhm.
you're in dental school and when you graduate. It changes a lot. So I think a good piece of advice is be open to change. Change is good. So I thought I was just going to be doing surgeries all the time, and that was going to
Mhm.
be my thing because that's what some of my mentors did. So I thought that was kind of the way to go. And then having different associateships, working at different places, it opens up your eyes. So the practice that we work at now, they are a fully digital practice. So we do
Mhm.
the CEREX, the same day dentistry. Um, we do a lot of things same day. We do a lot of digital stuff. We implement digital planning and workflows into our practice. So that's opened up my eyes because that's something that I'd never kind of experienced beforehand. So um, I guess for me, I'm a I guess somewhat. I do a little bit of everything. So I do, surgery, wisdom teeth, implants. I do IV sedation as well. Recently got my certification for that. I did a full year um, diploma in digital orthodontics as well. So I guess I do a little bit of everything. I don't know if it's smart, but I don't know. It's good to experience everything, and then you can kind of essentially phase out things that you're more passionate about, and things that you're less passionate about, and kind of work your way there. In terms of my wife, she graduated not too long ago, but she's been doing awesome things. She's general dentist as well, but she's been doing a lot of the digital stuff as well. So that's something that she's really enjoyed.
Interesting. Yeah, so it sounds like a very true general dentistry practice that you're really running is I'm doing
Yeah,
a bit of
which
everything and to the best of my abilities.
exactly. We keep most things in house. Where our patients relatively, we don't really have to send patients out too much,
Mhm.
but when we have to, obviously, then we do. But we try and keep as much keep them in the practice as much as we can. Yeah,
Mhm. So I guess we kind of have a background as to where you grew up, how you got into dentistry, and really what you're doing these days. I
yeah.
guess looking forward, two parts. Where do you see yourself going as Dr. Hamami, as the dentist, and then what is it that you're looking to get out of this podcast? You and I obviously can have a conversation about that more in depth, but I'd love to hear, obviously myself, of what the future holds, but also for anyone listening what they can expect from you as a dentist and then you as a podcast host.
Yeah, so great question. So things are always changing, right? So, when I first graduated, I was like a year into it. I was pretty set on specializing. I was going to go into ortho, but then I switched, and things changed. But now definitely a practice ownership is on the horizon. Whether
Mhm.
buying into a practice, acquiring a practice, or starting up a practice, that's obviously something that we're going to be talking about and talking to guess about as well. I don't think there's like a wrong answer. Everyone's got their own journey, but definitely see practice ownership in the future. Uh, in terms of the podcast, this is what we're trying to get out of it. Is interview as many people, see what people that are 5 years out, 10 years, 20 years out, see what they've done, how they've kind of progressed, and then seeing where our journeys go, and then I guess shoot it back to you, I think it would be good to kind of talk to you about about your history, and then we can kind of tie it all in to talk about where this podcast is going, essentially where we see it going. So, we met at a we like to go to events. We met at it was like a new dentist kind of conference or
I think if I'm not wrong, it was an event held by Bright Future Dentists. So shout out to
yes,
them.
yes,
I'll be honest, I don't remember the exact like theme of that event. But yeah, I remember meeting you there.
Yeah. So I think we hit it off. We were talking about things in the future and whatnot and what we do. So I think we definitely vibed right away. But it would be. I actually want to ask you about your like. We know each other an okay amount, but I think I'd really want to know more about you and kind of where you came from and how you started and how you kind of ended up in dentistry essentially. So if you can tell me about like a little bit about your upbringing and university kind of early midlife, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm out on the West Coast. So
Hmm.
I'm born and raised in a city called Delta. It's like 45 minutes away from downtown Vancouver, depending on traffic. But yeah, pretty much spent my whole life here. Didn't really know what I wanted to do again, going into university. Prior to that, I genuinely thought I was going to be a professional soccer player. That was like all I wanted to do. Um, and then what happened was in like high school, it was sort of like, okay, I'll just get a scholarship for soccer to at least pay
Yeah.
for university. And then maybe we'll see like if I'm able to springboard that into like something else. But the idea was in high school that I'm going to make sure my schooling is paid for. I grew up in
Yeah.
like a household where money was very, very tight. And so my
Hmm.
idea always was I need to be able to pay for my own schooling, and really get a good job, whether that is being a professional soccer player or like, some other high up corporate job. That was kind of the 18-year-old Gurtej's thought process. And then
Yeah.
funny enough, I actually came to Ontario for my schooling.
Oh,
I
cool.
did 1 year of school at the University of Windsor. And the hilarious thing was I still remember when the coach called me. This is back in the day when like you would send out mixtapes of your game and like
Yeah.
to a bunch of coaches. And I remember him calling me very vividly. And he was like, yeah, I'm from the University of Windsor. I saw your video. And then he kind of just started like asking me if I was interested in the university, if I knew anything about it. And me, I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. So I like literally remember sitting on my phone, like Googling, where is the University of Windsor? What is this school? And I obviously just was like, yeah, I'm interested. I definitely want to come and play for you guys. And I went there once, did a quick tryout, and then didn't really look around the city and decided to commit. Mainly, it was honestly an entirely financially motivated decision. They were giving me the most amount of money. It was guaranteed. I wouldn't have to pay for my schooling at all.
That's awesome.
Flights,
That's cool.
books, everything was covered. And I was like, all right, like it's a no brainer. And then I get to Windsor, and no offense to anyone from Windsor, it is not a fun city to be in, especially when you're from like the West Coast. It was minus 40, I think, like the first winter there. And here in like BC, -5 is cold. So you can
Yeah.
imagine it was like a bit of culture shock. But had great roommates. Honestly, I loved the city. It has a very special place in my heart even today. And like my roommates are like my best friends till this day.
That's
But
awesome.
it was after that first season that I was like, okay, am I going to be a professional soccer player? Probably not. Like, I'm not even one of the best guys on my team. I barely play right now. I highly doubt. It was like a bit of a humbling moment of like, okay, you're not as good as you thought you were. You're from this little city and you were maybe the best guy there, but now on a bigger scale, you're not who you thought you were. So
Yeah.
it was a bit humbling. And then when I came back home as well, I just saw that I grew up in a single parent household, and my mom was, she missed me. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I missed her too. And it was like, okay, maybe I go back home and get started on my career because that's a lot more tangible. I can actually work hard and do very well there, and maybe soccer is a bit of a pipe dream. So, yeah, only did 1 year in Windsor. Went to UBC after that. Came back home, to BC. Studied economics, and like literally, I think 6 weeks after getting back, I got a job at the bank, and started working in banking. And
That's
even that
awesome.
was because of one of my mentors. I met with him, and I'm pretty distraught. I was like, "Hey, I thought I was gonna be a soccer player. Like, I'm back home now. What do I do with my life?" And I told him that I was always into business. I always wanted to do something in business. Even while I was in Windsor, me and my roommate would like go shovel driveways for money, or do things like that. And so we're always trying to do something on the side. And I still
Love it.
remember him like always telling me like, "Hey man, all the wealthiest people in the world are business owners. We should drop out of university. Why are we even here?" And so when I gave back, I was like, okay, I know I want to do something in business, because business is, in my opinion, like the ultimate sport. It is a
Hmm.
24/7 sport. You could play forever. Um, and so I was introduced to my mentor's advisor. He worked at RBC at the time. And he really just told me about the industry, how it works. We got along really well. He was like a semi-professional rugby player. And
Cool.
so, we were kind of like jocks and we just got along. And he
Yeah.
kind of told me like, hey, you got to do these educations, this education, these designations, and this will get you to sort of where I'm at. And he was
Hmm.
someone I thought was like just an extremely successful person. He was someone I wanted to be like. He had a great wife, he had great kids. He was wearing like a $30,000 watch the first time we met. He was wearing a nice suit, very nice guy. Even like when I went to go meet him, I got to the restaurant early, and he was at a place called the Terminal City Club in Vancouver for anyone who's on the West Coast here. And when I got there like 30 minutes early, I just told him like, hey, I'm here to meet so and so, and they're like, yeah, he's just taking a morning swim. He'll be done in about 15 minutes, and he'll be
Oh.
here. So I was like, is this guy
That's
Batman? Like,
cool.
who is
Yeah,
he? Like, he's
yeah,
taking a morning swim. And so
that's
yeah, I
awesome.
was just instantly from like that moment on, I was like, okay, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
I wanna have a life like that. He's just like me. I can go and do the same things, and so anything he told me to do, I would just go and do it. He'd be like, "Oh, go get this course done," and I would go and do it. Go and try to get this position at the bank, and I would go and do it. So
Yeah.
I worked my way up the ranks very quickly at TD. I was going to school full time, but I was also working full time. And sort of in my last third and fourth year, I just stopped attending class. I would just
Hmm.
listen to lecture slides, and so I'd like go to class if I needed to. I'd sleep in my car, put on a suit, and then go into work like the next, like right after. And
Yeah.
that's why I worked at TD, because they had hours that were really long.
Hmm.
So I really grinded, got like 4 years of experience in before I was 22, I think.
Wow.
And so worked my way up the ranks, started as a teller all the way up, became the youngest like investment specialist in TD's history. And funny enough, I was managing money for like UBC professors while I was still at UBC as a student. They just didn't
That's
know
cool.
because I looked
That's
older.
cool.
That's the nice thing about
Yeah.
being Indian, right? You grow a beard, and I have gray hairs as well. And so everyone thought I was a lot older than I really was. And so yeah, that's what happened. That's what I was doing. That's how I got into the industry, and that's how I got my reps in, so to speak.
Yeah.
But then after TD, the day I graduated, I think I handed in my resignation, and I got a
Wow.
position at Scotiabank as a senior advisor. And I was going to be mainly working in like South Surrey, which is a really nice area of BC, in the Lower Mainland, and I was going to be working mainly with medical professionals at Scotiabank. And so I started working there. And I think I don't know the exact time I was there, but it was very short. It was maybe 6 to like 9 weeks that I was there. I like just did my training, and then I just hated being at the bank. Um,
Oh wow. So you quit.
I
You quit almost right away.
Yeah, almost right away,
Wow.
because I was freshly graduated. I was like, okay, well, I didn't like having a boss. Not because it was a bad thing to have a boss. I just didn't agree with what was being told to me. My advice was very much, you have sales quotas, you have sales targets, you have a boss to, sort of impress. You can only offer the bank's products. If a client comes in, and let's say I had a really great conversation with a client, we got along, I talked to them about their goals, but I didn't sell a product, that was considered a bad meeting to my
Hmm.
managers. Whereas for me, I'm like, I built a connection. I'm helping this person relieve, some sort of financial stress. And so I didn't like that pressure.
Yeah.
And then I just decided, like, you know what? I could probably do a better job of being an advisor and like truly act in my client's best interest if
Hmm.
I was independent. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I went independent. And then initially in my business, I was just kind of helping anyone and everyone, friends and
Yeah.
family. You start on social media. I used to do seminars in the community, and really just trying to build up my client base. And then I did that for, a year or two. And then pandemic hit, I was at home, and decided to just kind of look at my business of like, what do I want to do long term? It was actually like a pretty pivotal point for me. I had just gotten engaged.
Nice.
Um, I was about to end my lease on my office, and I was about to sign up for a new one. I was debating, do I buy an office? Do I lease another one? So there was a lot of decisions I was making around that time. And at the time as well, I was like, okay, I'm really busy. And I didn't like being a jack of all, and really a master of none. And
Hmm.
so at that point, I had been doing mortgages and investing and insurance and really doing a one stop shop, but I was doing it for everyone. And so when I
Yeah.
looked at my clients, I was like, okay, maybe I specialize in who I work with. And at that time, about, like I said, 80% approximately of my clients were in healthcare, but that meant all of healthcare. That meant physicians, dentists, optometrists, physiotherapists, chiropractors, so on and so forth. And so at that time, I was like, okay, well, maybe I start a company called White Coat Financial, because I always knew I wanted to specialize. And the idea was, if you wear a white coat traditionally, I will help you. And so a lot of my clients in marketing, became more towards physicians and dentists and optometrists. And that was kind of how White Coat Financial started. And
I
I
love
really
that.
just started honing in. It made going Canada wide very easy because
Mhm.
the pandemic had hit. And I was always scared to niche down because I was like, well, I only have BC. If I want to go and work with clients outside of my province, it's going to be very difficult to do so. And I was a little bit scared of like how many dentists and how many doctors and how many optometrists are really in British Columbia.
Yeah.
Stupid me. There's obviously a lot,
Mhm.
but that was kind of my thought process. And then the pandemic really allowed me to go Canada wide and narrow down who I work with, and then offer more services to that person. And then now where White Coat's at is just an extension of that. Very similar. Earlier this year, I was looking at my clients again and I was like, okay, well, of the 80% that were doctors that were White Coat clients, now of the 80% of the clients I have, 80% are dentists. And so
Mhm.
I was like, okay, why don't I just niche down even further and specialize even further and do that much better of a job and widen our services again? So I keep iterating of going more and more narrow with who I work with and specializing in the type of problems that I solve, but wider in the different tools that I have to kind of solve those problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, no, I
And
love that.
so yeah, so White Coat today is really a full service, like one stop shop for dentists across Canada. So
I love it.
we help with their investments, we help with insurance, we help with mortgages, we do tax planning in house, I do financial planning. And then we've even started now to do like vehicle financing if you need a car loan. We also do clinic purchases. So if you want to buy a clinic, we can offer you the financing. Yes, the banks will give
Wow.
you, 100% financing, but we're still able to do it in case you're not getting the terms that are favorable, or at least give the bank some competition so that they have to give you a lower rate or something like that. And so it very much is a one-stop shop right now of anything a dentist needs to, manage their money. Everything outside of their clinic, financially speaking, we're able to help them with.
I love it. It's cool how even though we're in kind of almost completely different industries, there's so many parallels. Like you're talking about you're doing all these different things, and then you started honing in on going from everyone to health professionals to dentists. It's kind of similar to us, but you see as dentists kind of evolve through their career. They usually start doing general dentistry and they start owning it on certain skills and doing certain procedures, um, which is kind of interesting. So it's cool how it
Yeah.
parallels. I love that you also have a mentor that you kind of had a you kind of saw yourself in this mentor, which is great. I think that's a very important thing because why reinvent the wheel when it's been invented, right? So you can always be, obviously you're going to be your own person and you're going to do things your way, but I think it's awesome to have a certain goal to kind of achieve and to see someone that's achieved that and then going from there and them helping you throughout your career.
Mhm.
It's so that you avoid all the problems and the risks that they had taken, and it kind of makes your pathway a little bit easier, and then you pass that on to the next generation. That's kind of how
Yeah.
you know the beauty of humankind. I guess that's how it kind of evolves.
It
But tell
very
me
much becomes
more.
full circle. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny enough, my mentor and I are technically competition now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, well, like he doesn't work with
But
dentists. Like he will obviously, if a dentist comes across, he'll work with them. But he
yeah,
works with the high net worth space, and I guess so do I. But yeah, I joke with him all the time because that sporting
he
competitiveness is always there, and I very much am like, yeah, I'm better than you because you're tied to RBC, and I can do everything. I can do everything you do and more. And so it's turned into a fun like competition, and it's still a very healthy and great relationship. So yeah.
yeah he built a little monster, a big
Yeah, he
monster
did.
now.
Yeah, it was funny because when I graduated too, I could have easily just went and did a job offer and started working for him. But I kind of decided,
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to become my own man because he's very high up at RBC. I didn't want that chip on my shoulder of, oh, you just got this job because of whoever
because
he
yeah,
is. So I was like, okay, I'd rather be my own man and work. And then as I went through that path, I realized that I actually don't want to work at the bank, not because it's a bad place. It's honestly great. I just didn't. I think as you get older, you learn more and more about yourself and what your values are and what's really important to you. And
yeah,
similar to you, when when you were in dental school, you thought I'm going to open 50 clinics and be this businessman. And
exactly.
then life happens and you meet a partner and you become a man and you start understanding what your values are, and maybe that changes things. And that very much happened to me. I'll be honest, I actually don't really agree with the business model that he's under. And so I thought it's kind of against my morals. I actually don't see the industry going that direction. I actually see it more going towards the direction that White Coat Financial is kind of sort of pushing it. And so yeah, you kind of become your own man, and realize what's important to you, and start, you know, living that out in your business, and helping the clients that really you see fit. Which I'm sure dentistry is the same. Everyone can do things their way, and everyone develops their own style. And I think that's what's happened with me in my field.
That's awesome. And you have so many, which is just crazy. You have so many designations as well.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me more about that. Like, did it, was it something that you got as you were kind of going, and, or, like, how did that come about
Yeah,
essentially?
I think that's the nice thing about knowing. I always say to everyone, I'm probably one of the luckiest people in the world. Yes, I absolutely work hard, but I got very lucky in the sense of I knew what I wanted to do very early in my life. Which was, I think I was 18 or 19 when I started at the bank, and I knew that 18 or 19-year-old, what I'm doing today is exactly what he wanted to do. And
Hmm.
so it gave me a sense of focus and direction. So when I was in school, I did my CFP alongside my undergrad, which was kind of like our version of a DMD or a DDS. And then I
Yeah.
did my CLU. That's more of like an insurance specialty and tax specialty designation. And then right now, I don't know, maybe by the time this comes out, but early next year, I'll have my CIM done as well, which is like a chartered investment management designation. And then when you have sort of that trifecta, you become a fellow of the Canadian Securities Institute. I still remember saying to like my mom that like I want to get enough education where like my designations are as long as my actual name. And I think that'll end up happening. And yes, part of that is ego, and maybe part of that's vain, but very often the reason I went and did all the education that I did is really twofold. Number one, I think my industry needs to be heightened. You guys imagine in dentistry, if you could just go and write like an exam and become a dentist, and then doing dentistry school was optional after the fact. And
I
that
see.
exam, let's say it was open book and there was no clinical work required. It was just an open book multiple choice exam. We would all
Yeah.
agree that'd be terrible for dentistry and just terrible for Canadians, because everyone would have all kinds of diseases and problems. That's what happens in the financial planning space. I love my mom to death. The woman can barely turn on a computer and like Google stuff, but if she wanted to, she could become an advisor. I'm convinced within 3 weeks, because it's an open
Wow.
book exam, multiple choice, pretty common sense. And then you could do all these designations that I just mentioned after the fact if you want to do it. And you'd be
Yeah.
shocked how many clients I come across whose advisor does not have the designations. And to put it in your guys' terms, just because you have experience, that doesn't replace the education. I think you, as a
Of
young
course
dentist,
not.
probably were coming out the gate, and you probably had like assistants and hygienists who could probably do a root canal or something better than you could, or at least they knew the steps, but you would never let them
Yeah.
do it because they haven't done the education. And that's
Yeah.
exactly the problem in financial planning, not just for dentists. I think across the board for Canadians, Canadians deserve better standard of care from their advisors. And so that was one reason I wanted to get my education. That if I'm sitting across a client, I want them to have peace of mind knowing that, hey, I've done my education. It's almost a respect thing of I respect you
Hmm.
enough to go and get the designations, even if they're not required. But then to take it a step further, now the motivation has very much become I'm working with people who are highly specialized in one area of life. It is again almost disrespectful to not make sure I've done the same level of education, or I've done similar courses, and I'm continuing to take CE, and I'm continuing to get designations. I want to make sure that when you sit across from me as a client, you can have some peace of mind that, hey, he's a specialist just the same way I am. Because when patients come to see you, it's a scary experience. People have dental anxiety, and then on top of that, most people don't like coming to see the dentist. They're usually in
Yeah.
pain. They're usually not coming in for preventative stuff. It's usually when the problem's pretty bad. And same thing with me. A lot of people have anxieties around money, and there's a lot of emotions tied up into it, and a lot of self worth tied up into it. I want to at least be able to mitigate the fear of, does this guy know what he's doing? And take that off your
Hmm.
plate so that we can actually have an honest and deep conversation about really what's important to you, and where you want to see your life going. So that was kind of the reasoning for doing all the education I have. And it's actually very sad that people point out that I've done lots of education, because we don't say that about dentists or physicians. You just kind of assume you have it. which is why I'm very vocal about it, because I want all advisors to go and get this education so that it's not a big deal, because you're supposed to be educated in the field that you work in, especially when your field can change people's lives, which is really what, in my opinion, financial planning does. But yeah, that's my long
Dude,
spiel.
you are firing me up. I love that. I love that mindset. I love the hustle. I love that you're setting the standard essentially, which is amazing. That's what we want in every industry, and I think that as a dentist, that's exactly what we want in someone that we are going to trust. Almost you're like a one-stop shop, which is awesome. So you're helping us with everything. So I think the fact that you do that is awesome. It's firing me up, kind of. I'm really really interested in this. So it's good for you, buddy. I'm very very proud of you. That's what you've accomplished is insane. I know you've won a bunch of awards as well. Like you've won the Rising Star. You're on this Rising Stars list. You won the Young Achiever of the Year by Wealth Professional Canada in 2023 or 2022, or
Yeah, it was this year.
That's
Yeah.
good for you, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, I appreciate that.
So that really is a testament to you and everything that you've done. And I guess that's why we're here together. We're both ambitious. We come from different our backgrounds are pretty similar. We kind of grew up kind of the same way, which is great. We knew kind of what we want to do somewhat. We work in different fields, but there's so many parallels, and then we kind of meet in dentistry, which is awesome. So that's that leads us to this podcast, I guess, and what we want to. I guess actually let's take it back like a notch, I guess, because this isn't just what you do. You're like, you're constantly exercising. I always see you on Instagram posting. You're always working out. You said you're married, right?
Yeah, correct? Yeah, married. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any kids or no?
No, not yet. Just 2 dogs, but no kids yet. Yeah.
Okay. So we're kind of in the same position, which is awesome. We're kind of, it's a tough area because it's one of those, and I know you've talked about this. It's called the avalanche or
the adulting avalanche. That was like the premise that built the company, because most of my clients, I'll be honest, like yes, I have clients in their 50s and 60s as they get closer to retirement and things of that nature, but a majority of the dentists I work with are late 20s to late 30s, sort of. You just from, hey, I just graduated dental school to, I'm reaching my 40s and I really want to make sure my future is set up. And yeah, you're hit with so many responsibilities, man. You're hit with 6 figures of student loan debt. You're hit with buying your first real car. You're hit with, buying maybe a house, maybe getting married, traveling, saving and investing. There's a lot of stuff. And it's a confusing age because some of your friends are still partying. Some are married and kids. It's like there's so many responsibilities and decisions, massive life decisions that get made in your late 20s to late 30s. And not to keep shamelessly plugging our company, but we're here to pretty much help navigate those decisions of like, how does this affect you financially long term? How does this all play out? And I think that's why you and I get along so well, or even with my clients, we're friends because we're all around the same age. We're all kind of going through similar things. Like I've been married for like a year longer than you, but no kids. Bought our first house a year and a bit ago, and you start wondering like, okay, do I have children? Do I start a practice? Do I do all these things? And it's nice to be able to go through that similar experience with your clients, and even explain to them like, hey, I've seen what this looks like. This decision looks like 5 years from now. If you go this path, and it's really just nice being friends with your clients and being able to relate to them and listening to the same music. I listen to a lot of rap, and so I'll like constantly put out quotes out there. And when a client understands what I'm saying, it's that much better. So even you and I
agree.
Similar life path, exact same sort of situation, which makes obviously working together that much funner.
Yeah, that's what's got me super excited because, we're into the same things. This is an exciting time for our age group. It's an exciting time in general. There's so much going on. The world's changed so much. There's so much innovation. And I talk to my peers, and you're right. Some of them are having kids. Some of them are single, trying to figure out, that. Some of them are trying to, some of them are owners now, and they're navigating that as well.
Yeah.
So it's a super exciting time. It's obviously a stressful time, but, stress is good. And it's again, it's super exciting to kind of see these ventures and where we're kind of going.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what brings us to where where we come together essentially.
Yeah. And
So
I think this podcast will be fun because we've obviously said it a lot. There's so many different journeys and paths in dentistry. You know,
yeah,
a lot of people focus on the do I own a clinic or be an associate? But there's so many ways to earn an income in dentistry. I have clients who sell courses, and that's honestly
yeah,
some of their income, and they spend the other time traveling, where they're in their clinic maybe a couple days a week. I have other clients who are associates and they work 6 months a year, and the other 6 months they kind of live their life. There's so much stuff you can do in dentistry. I genuinely like thought about going back to school and becoming a dentist because I honestly think it's probably one of the most beautiful professions out there. You get to
yeah,
mix science with art. You get to mix healthcare with entrepreneurship. There's so many paths you can take. You can honestly never get bored. You can never know too much. And you're genuinely helping people. You're relieving pain. You're helping be preventative. Make sure that they don't. You can screen for oral cancer and things of that nature. There's so much that you can do to help and change someone's life. So I'm like fired up all the time about dentistry. But there's so many paths that you can take. There's so many
yeah.
different options you have. And I think this podcast will be great because you are obviously working in dentistry, like literally. I'm like dentistry adjacent, I guess. I'm not in dentistry, but that's all I do all day. Like even my podcast, I listen to dental podcasts. I listen to Hi, I'm Doctor and all these other podcasts constantly. So if I'm like on a run, I'm constantly thinking about dentistry. But I think this podcast would be great with you and I working together because you can cover like more of the clinical, technical side of things. What is life like as a dentist? And then I can sort of bring in my knowledge of what is life like outside of dentistry. When you leave that clinic and you shut the doors on it, what do you actually do with your income? What do you do with your business? Does it make sense to be an associate or not? Because money affects everyone. Money affects
Mhm.
it touches every single aspect of your life, from your relationships to your health to your happiness. And I think this will be a fun partnership to have conversations with people who are in dentistry, dentistry adjacent, talk about their career paths, and add a little bit of a different spin. And ideally, honestly, I know you guys as dentists can work kind of all across the world. And dentistry is very similar no matter which country you go to. But for me, all my knowledge is Canadian, so it'd be nice to have sort of a resource, even from a financial planning standpoint, that specializes in Canadians, because there's so much information
Ex-
and misinformation out there. And I get dentists
Yeah,
asking me all the time, like, "Hey, can I buy a house with 30% down?" I was like, "No, that's in the States." Or or my student loans, are they interest deductible? It's like, no, I think that's in the States. It's not really here. So I'm very excited about just talking about a ton of different topics as they relate to dentistry. And really, it'll be really nice, I think, for like a lot of young dentists who are confused of like, what do I do? What
yes,
are the different paths I could take? Why should I be a
exactly.
dentist? What's exciting about this profession?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where we touched on previously when we are talking about mentorship and, emulating yourself somewhat, seeing yourself in someone. So I listened to, during COVID, I listened to a bunch of podcasts and I'm like, you know what, I kind of see myself being like this dentist. Like, they got what they've got going on is great. So I think the list of guests that we have is amazing.
Hmm.
The listeners are going to love it. We have such a wide range of people that are 5 years out, people that are 30 years out, multi-practice owners, single practice owners, associates, um, public dentists. There's so many ways to kind of fulfill what you need to fulfill essentially, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So at least it gives our listeners and viewers something to kind of emulate and kind of to see themselves in and see what's kind of out there and what's possible. Sometimes you don't even know what's possible
Hmm.
until you kind of are exposed to it. So um, that's a great thing about what we're doing, I think. And then, we have your aspect as well, which is huge because, there's so many things that I personally don't know that I want to ask you about. So, we're probably going to have little clips, little sideshows about, debt pay down, insurance, investing, taxes. That's something, we went to school for dentistry and we are terrible for the most part with this stuff. And that's why we rely on on our team. We have it. We talk about we're both sports fanatics, and we kind of talked about having you're the Phil Jackson. I think I'm gonna call you Phil Jackson, and we can be part of the triangle offense, and you kind of guide us and let us know kind of what to do and help us, avoid pitfalls and help progress our career.
Mm-hmm.
So that's super exciting. I'm going to be learning a ton from you. And I think, vice versa. And we're going to be learning a lot from our guests, and our guests are going to be learning from us, and it's going to be awesome. I'm super, super excited about this. So yeah.
I think that wraps up this episode. I think the guests now know a little bit about you and a little bit about me and kind of what we're going to be doing on this podcast. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Dental Journeys podcast, proudly sponsored by White Coat Financial. Join us next time as we continue to explore the journeys, strategies, and successes of dental professionals across Canada.